The Philadelphia Eagles, however, they have a dilemma, and it's a big one. We've talked about this multiple weekends now because Jalen Hurts was named the starter over Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz, as we all know, is a $100 million quarterback. He's paid to be the man. He just didn't play like the man at all. In fact, he became a liability for the Eagles. And Coach Peterson, Doug Peterson, has waffled back and forth, really, and maybe internally. He's kept it straight to us. Jalen Hurts is the guy, but everybody else is playing well as well. It's a team win. These guys played well. Jalen, contributed, but it's really been a team win the last couple of weekends, which is really a way of obscuring the fact that there is a decision that's being contemplated behind the scenes. Now, these last two games, why they're important to the Eagles, they may or may not make the playoffs because the NFC East is so bad. They actually are still they're still in the conversation, but the likelihood of them making the playoffs is slim. But that doesn't mean that these last two games aren't utterly important for the future of this franchise. Forget this season. Forget how we're going to evaluate this year. I'm talking about the future of this franchise depends on these last two games. And that means that Jalen Hurts needs to get an evaluation of how good he can actually be and where his ceiling is. And is he instead the future of the Philadelphia Eagles as opposed to Carson Wentz? Now, I know it sounds blasphemous to say something like this, but this is the reality of football in 2020. You can't afford to make mistakes, especially that is in paying guys and keeping the wrong guys, especially with a salary cap that's going to be depressed next year and, some uncertainty around the future of this particular team, whether it's the head coach, whether it's the general manager. I'm talking everybody is being evaluated right now. But the most important evaluation is Jalen Hurts. Now, that first game, he ran the ball well, effectively over 100 yards. He beat the New Orleans Saints in a game that nobody thought that he could win. And it felt like he was managing the game. There was no real danger in the things that he was trying to do. The next weekend against the Arizona Cardinals, he had to get into a shootout with one of the really good young quarterbacks, the offensive rookie of the year last year, in Kyler Murray for the Arizona Cardinals, and he lived up to the task. He threw for 338 yards and 3 touchdowns and ran for 1. He looked like he was a superstar quarterback. Now, what does that mean? Is that who Jalen Hurts is going to be, or is that just an anomaly because of who they were playing? And the Arizona Cardinals have had some injuries on defense. What is Jalen Hurts, and who is Jalen Hurts? These last two games, both division games, this weekend against the Cowboys, and then next weekend against the Washington football team, who are trying to solidify theirself into the postseason, are imperative for them to find out. And here's why. Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts for a reason. I'm not exactly sure what that reason is because it doesn't make sense to undermine a guy that you just paid $128 million. I'm talking about Carson Wentz. And this is less about Carson Wentz. This is more about Jalen Hurts. But you pay Carson Wentz $128 million, and then you draft a guy in the top of the second round who was an elite star quarterback in college at Alabama and then also at Oklahoma. And what do you think the message is? I mean, competition is paramount to success in anything. But in the NFL, when you pay a quarterback $100+ million, the last thing you want to do is bring in competition. But they had their reasons. And maybe their reasons were that they realized that maybe they made a mistake with Carson Wentz. And for the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks, we've talked about how if they decide to move on from Carson Wentz, it's going to be incredibly punitive to this team. Well, in actuality, it's not. Thanks to our buddies over at Over the Cap, you go look at some of the implications of Carson Wentz. Now, if they cut him pre-June 1, it's an enormous hit on their salary cap, $59 million. That's what we've been talking about. If they cut him post-June 1, it's still an enormous hit on their salary cap, $34 million. But it doesn't take into account, and this is maybe what we haven't looked at enough. If they trade him pre-June 1st, it's a $34 million cap. If they trade him after June 1st, that cap hit falls precipitously, like 3/4. It's $9.2 million if they trade him post June 1st. So for all of us looking at, man, there's no exit here. There's no out for the Philadelphia Eagles if Jalen Hurts proves that he can be the man. They have to stick with Carson Wentz because Carson Wentz is making so much money and he's going to count so much against the cap. In actuality, that's not the case. And if the Philadelphia Eagles, it's all business, right? Maybe we didn't give Howie Roseman enough credit for building in this little bit of an out. It's a tiny out. It's so far down in the fine print that you don't even look at it on a regular basis. But when you go do some research on it, Howie Roseman gave themselves an out. And so when I go back now and I ask that same question that I just asked 3 minutes ago, why did the Philadelphia Eagles draft Jalen Hurts? No, it didn't make sense. Well, clearly they understood that maybe Carson Wentz wasn't our guy, and we might need somebody to replace him. And that person will take a risk. It could be Jalen Hurts. He almost won the Heisman Trophy. He was fantastic both as a runner at Oklahoma. His senior year, he led the team in rushing, and as a passer, he threw for 30-something touchdowns at Oklahoma his senior year. I think that was the number. But he was a good passer and an accurate passer and an athlete, and he got the ball out of his hands quickly. He made good decisions. Maybe, just maybe, we can find this guy in the second round. There had to be a reason, and there had to be an out. And now we see the reason because Jalen Hurts has been balling, and we see the out. Trade post June 1st, Carson Wentz. That number is not punitive for the Philadelphia Eagles. So these last couple of weeks, it's all about figuring out who Jalen Hurts is and can he be your quarterback of the future. This isn't a knock on Carson Wentz because when you listen now to Doug Peterson, despite Adam Schefter's report, despite some of the innuendo that's been put out there, Carson Wentz he's actually playing the good teammate. You can't divide your team. Carson Wentz also has to realize being a good teammate might get him somewhere else and valuable somewhere else and have value somewhere else. We've heard this many times. There are options out there for Carson Wentz. Could it be the Indianapolis Colts if Phillip Rivers decides to hang it up? Jacoby Brissett is probably not their guy of the future, but Frank Reich has such a good relationship with Carson Wentz that we've talked about before. Whether it could be the Chicago Bears, it could be anybody that values a guy like Carson Wentz and feels like that they can fix what he is doing wrong. What Jalen Hurts has been doing right is getting the ball out of his hands quickly, making quick decisions, extending plays with his legs, utilizing and using the zone read both to his benefit and the benefit of his running back, Miles Sanders. There is so much more versatility with Jalen Hurts at quarterback, and Doug Peterson, I think, appreciates it because this is the kind of offense that he wants to run. Nick Foles wasn't a runner, but he did get the ball out of his hands quickly. They employ a lot of screens. There's a lot of draws. There's a lot of misdirection. There's things that Jalen Hurts can thrive in. So in Philadelphia, the next 2 weeks are paramount. You got to figure out who Jalen Hurts is because if he proves that maybe it's playing these next two games and winning them or just playing phenomenally like we've seen in the first two, it creates a discussion that I think Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles set up on purpose because we've been asking since draft day back in April, why in the hell are you drafting Jalen Hurts in the second round when you have Carson Wentz who just paid $128 million extension? Because we gave ourselves an out just in case. And so I've been killing the Philadelphia Eagles. I think most people have been killing the Philadelphia Eagles. But I actually might have to give them a little thumbs up right here. They might have given themselves an out, and they're going to find out in these next couple of weeks whether or not Jalen Hurts has the ability to be that guy, and maybe Carson Wentz goes someplace else. It might be good for Carson Wentz, and it also might be good for the Eagles. Very rarely do you say win-win in situations that seem like they're quarterback controversies. We might get a win-win in Philadelphia.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.